Amazon has entered into their 11th generation of Kindle devices and their 5th generation of Paperwhite devices. This is the Kindle Paperwhite 5. It is a very premium feeling device at a not so premium price tag. It's only $139.99 on the USA site. It also features a 6.8-inch brand new HD Carta screen. And this is interesting because this is one of the only times they've gone past the 6-inch screen size, with the exception of the Kindle DX many moons ago and the Oasis 2 and 3. But a huge and obvious question is, how is it different than the previous generation, as this is very important? Remember, we waited 3 years for this unit. Well, let's lay down some light specs to find out. We may do a future comparison video once things cool down in the industry right now. Paperwhite 4 is on the left, Paperwhite 5 is on the right. You have a 6.8-inch screen versus a 6-inch screen, and you have a little bit of a different screen resolution layout, 1430 by 1080 versus 1448 by 1072. They both have 300 ppi and 8 gigabytes of storage. The 4 has a 32 gig variant, whereas the 5 does not, unless you upgrade to the Signature Edition, which is more money and features some different hardware changes we'll get into in the future. USB-C versus micro. They are both IPX8 waterproof, and the 5 has far more LEDs than its predecessor and is $30 more expensive. So just looking at the specs on paper, is this enough of a reason to make the upgrade after a 3-year-long wait? Well, let's check it out. Specs on paper aside, and comparing it to its predecessor isn't really fair because this is 3 years different we're talking about here, and a lot could have changed in the real-world use of this. So looking at the screen, everything is pretty much business as usual. Home, back, settings, Goodreads, store, and if you go into settings, you get your drop-down that has dark mode, Bluetooth, airplane mode, sync your Kindle, and all settings with your brightness and your warm light. So overall, nothing's really changed, and it's not really the other side of the coin. It's very much just the same, very familiar experience. Something that isn't written on paper that we have found in our testing is this thing is really quick. It is super responsive. If you tap something, you're pretty much sure that it's gonna do it. This thing is on point, and we actually haven't seen too many units with this level of consistent reliability when it comes to tapping something. That's just something you can't find in the spec sheet. We understand that a lot of people say 8 gigs is enough when it comes to books because they aren't inherently large, but you do have to make note that even though you're getting the 8 gig model, you're actually only getting 5.91 GB of usable storage space. About 5 years ago, we stopped testing the speed of page turns because e-readers had an inherent problem with it. We can tell you that page turns are no longer an issue. They're very quick, whether you're tapping, whether you're swiping, and this new generation turns pages 20% faster than its predecessor. Long pressing is as good and stable as it's ever been. You go ahead and tap something, you get highlight, note, share, and more options. You will have to go back and you'll have to translate a box, and then you will go over here and then you can get translation. You can translate from any language to any language you see on the drop down here, and you can even choose something as difficult as Chinese, and you've broken down your book in 3 seconds to be a completely different language, which is a fantastic feature to have. If you do want to translate the one word, you will have to long press it, swipe over to Wikipedia, and swipe over one more to the translation itself, but it won't be under the 3 dots. Whereas most e-readers, tapping in the center will bring up the screen, it actually does not. You have to tap on the top third of the unit itself. This will bring up the top bar. It's the equivalent of the drop down on an Android device. Clicking here is where you're going to change all of your themes, font, layouts, and everything else. You can manage your themes or create your own themes. If you go over to font, you get boldness, size, and all of the font styles. You can switch everything. Everything changes live in the background. In fact, Amazon is one of the fastest to do this. You can change your orientation, alignment, spacing, and your margins, and everything will change as you are doing this without having to go back to check. You can also show the clock while reading, mentions about this book, and everything is very conveniently paired with a nice toggle switch, so you can just toggle them on or off anytime you want. Without going into the menu, they make it very intuitive to change the font size. It's just pinching and zooming. You can actually pinch and zoom, hold one finger on the screen, drag your other finger, and despite the menu here, you can change the font size underneath. And this is a very quick change tool that is not only easy to master, but very convenient. We always say we start appreciating manga around the 7 to 7.8 inch screen size, so this is a little bit off at only 6.8 inches, but manga does shine through. And yes, Amazon in many markets, including Japan, America, Canada, has a wide selection of manga available. They have also kept the quick page turn navigation from the manga model that came out years back in Japan, so you can just swipe your hand like that. Unfortunately, they don't have any guided view or anything like that. If you tap the cell, it's not actually going to go into that view, but pinch and zoom is very nice and it is very quick. It goes into a kind of faux A2 mode, although there is no system-wide A2 mode like on an Onyx, etc., and you do get a little mini map on the bottom corner. So it is a decent manga experience, but it is a little bit on the small side. However, on some graphic novels, as you can see right here, even in a screen as complex as this with some portraits and landscapes, you can indeed double tap into a cell to trigger guided view, and this will go from cell to cell until you're at the end of the page. If you want to see the page, you double tap, and you can still take advantage of the pinch and zoom. So this is extremely useful in graphic novels over manga themselves, and it is going to just depend on the one that you download. Some will have it, some will not. Our go-to benchmark PDF is loaded onto every single device we review to keep it consistent, so we can really show off what the device has to offer, not the PDF itself. So we are using the baseball PDF we put onto everything to check things out. So you can do page turns, and on a larger PDF like this, 20 to 100 MB, page turns do take a little bit longer than an ebook, obviously. You can pinch and zoom with an instant mini-map that pops up. You can still long press on text in a side-loaded PDF and make your highlights. You can actually also long press a bunch of text like so to make massive highlights. So if you wanted to highlight a passage, you can go like that. Now it is going to only work on text that it recognizes as elements of text. For example, things that are styled like this, it actually can't understand that this says TL or TJ or whatever the case may be. So it is only going to work on things that are inline and things that are considered to be text. The Bluetooth is very fast on this unit, and it will connect to pretty much anything, including this no-name $9 clock combination speakers that we got online, and all you do is sync it via Bluetooth and start listening to your audiobook.
Might have been the inspiration for many a poster in the late 80s. The engine died, and its drone evaporated into stillness. The van shook on its chassis, as if the beast were having a mechanical seizure.
The device doesn't have any audio on it. It has wireless Bluetooth, but no speakers, no headphone jack, so the quality is only going to be as good as the speakers you are pairing it with. Wireless speakers, wireless headphones, much the same as the previous generation. They do have Goodreads enabled on the top bar. Goodreads is a social cataloging website that allows users to upload annotations, quotes, reviews, etc. The store is very much business as usual. You can click on a book and it takes you right to the purchase decision. You can download a free sample, or you can buy it right out of the gates. You can also toggle over to the Audiobook Store, in which case these will be all your audiobooks. Now when you click on something, you have to be very careful because it'll say buy for $29 or buy for $0, and in a very small print it'll say with an Audible trial, cancel anytime. So just make sure you read everything before you make a purchase decision, because you might be signing up with one of many Amazon services that require rebills. Dark mode is very useful, and it is now one of the 5 choices at the top of the unit itself. Clicking on dark mode, it just completely reverses the polarity of the e-ink particles so that everything is black and some things are white. This is really nice because what this does is allow you to get an easier experience on the eyes without having a blinding contrast in your face. So it can be a little bit beneficial to have that dark mode on there and not be buried into any developer options. It is just user selectable now. Because this now has 17 LEDs, you get a very clean experience, and not only that, you can change the warm lighting via this as well. And yes, this all works on dark mode at the same time. So this is a very, very customizable experience, but they did get rid of the max button, in which you go to the end and click the max, and it goes one step further. So is the Kindle Paperwhite 5 night and day different than the Paperwhite 4 released 3 years ago? No, not really. It's more like day and later that day. But you do get a fairly premium feeling device for a very good price point. It's only $139 and it does feel very modern. The resolution is right, the screen size is on point around what everyone else is using in the industry, and you do have USB-C on here with a lot more advancements in the glow light. As for the usability of the device in the real world, there's no color, there's no note-taking, it's very much just business as usual. Make the decision for yourselves. We may get into some follow-up comparison videos versus other things, so keep checking into goodyreader.com. But for now, this is a review of the Kindle Paperwhite 5. For goodyreader.com, this is Peter.